Most of us find ourselves saying, oh, this guy is my type, this girl is my type. Your type, you actually learned. Where did you learn emotional connection? When you are growing up. And that's the reason why also sometimes emotional relationships are so tumultuous. Your parents, they not only bring you up, but they actually cement a lot of life situations for you when you're younger. What is modeled, whether it is right or wrong, becomes how you choose your partner. For the brain, what is modeled becomes predictable. What is predictable becomes familiar to the central nervous system. What becomes familiar becomes safe. If you don't change this pattern, I can guarantee you that you'll most probably mirror the same relationship that you don't want to be in. So if you're emotionally neglected, unfortunately, you learned that your emotional needs are not important. So the first person who meets any aspect of your emotional needs becomes a savior, and you will cling on to them whether they are healthy for you or not. Hi guys, welcome. This is episode 4, Therapy Tales. Thank you for listening in. I truly appreciate the feedback and everything that everybody is saying, both good and bad, zinakaribishwa. So this is episode 4. In episode 3, we talked about adverse childhood experiences and how they can lead to the body to degenerate or to be stuck. And how sometimes some childhood traumas can lead to some diseases, scientific data. So today we are going to talk about how childhood traumas or adverse childhood experiences lead us into relationships that are not the most healthiest. So if you're a couple, if you're a single who wants to be a couple, if you're a single who's been a couple, and if you're a couple who's considering to be a single, tune in. Now, I'll just do a small recap. So adverse childhood experiences generally are just childhood traumas. It's the things that you experience as a child that you ought not to have experienced. And in episode 1, we defined trauma as an event that causes an emotional experience. So let's get into it. Most of us find ourselves saying, oh, this guy is my type, this girl is my type. This themlings is my type. We don't judge. Your type, you actually learned. By the way, no matter how progressive we become as human beings, ata AI iende ikue AZ or whatever, we will always form back into the basic instincts of humanity. The reason why we seek out relationships is because we want emotional connection. I saw this beautiful quote that maybe I can share with you. Somebody said that people get married so that they can have a witness of them living life. I was like, yeah, that's actually it. The reason why most of us get married is so that we can have a companionship with us, that we are doing life, because they witness us being alive. So no matter how advanced we are, relationships always cause us to want to emotionally connect. Where did you learn emotional connection? When you are growing up. And that's the reason why also sometimes emotional relationships are so tumultuous. I have had people tell me that I didn't even know I have an anger issue until I got married. I didn't think I was such an angry person until I got married. So when we go for these types of my type is this, my type is that, 90% of the structure of your type is learned. And whether we like it or not, science shows that the partner we pick is always familiar, both on the negative and on the positive. What does that mean? By the way, your parents, they not only bring you up, but they actually cement a lot of life situations for you when you're younger. And this is what I tell my clients and friends who are single. Me, I'm single. I'm actually about to drop an album. I sing perpetually single by choice. Not that relationships have it, but I've just chosen to be single. If you're single and you're looking for a partner, you better know the quality of partner you choose determines how you sleep, how you wake up, how you dress, sometimes even the dreams that you dream, how you eat, how you present yourself in life, how you evaluate money, how you spend your money. Literally, the quality of your partner intertwines with all aspects of your life. And I like to say secondary to faith. The quality of your partner is, I think there should be a curriculum in school to teach people how to choose their partners effectively. Because most of the time, we choose our partners based on what was modeled. Now, here's the funny thing about the brain. Whatever is modeled in consistency to the brain takes that as a truth. So for me, what was modeled in my family of origin is independence. My dad constantly kept telling me, don't depend on another man for financial capability. Work hard, get your own money, get your own freedom. It's literally what I did. What is modeled, whether it is right or wrong, becomes how you choose your partner. So now imagine, so here we are looking at traumatic experiences in children. Imagine you come from a home where inconsistency is modeled, where you've seen mom and dad, they don't talk and that's theirs, we don't judge. They don't talk. And the constant language in your family of origin is silence. What will happen is that when you get into a relationship and somebody requires you to talk, you start being, quote unquote, repulsed by them, or you start finding them too needy. The adverse childhood experiences or childhood trauma or childhood exposure models how we choose relationships. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper. If you come from a family, or if you were exposed to a family where you saw your mother do everything, in terms of she's the one who educated the children, she's the one who made decisions in the family, she's the one who literally carried the whole family, because most of us millennials come from those households. You actually learn that as a woman, you're the one to carry everything about your relationship. Now, what happens if you get into a relationship with a man who knows it's his role to provide, but then you unconsciously know it is your role to also provide? And I'm not trying to put blame on anyone's behavior here. But what happens is that this partner starts to feel like there's no place in that person's life. And that's where a lot of conflicts come about. Now, if you're a man and you come from a household where dad came home late, or dad came home drunk, or dad was home present, or dad just provided, it's very likely that that is the same role you're going to take in your relationship. Why is this? For the brain, what is modeled becomes predictable. What is predictable becomes familiar to the central nervous system. What becomes familiar becomes safe. And whether it is safe in dysfunctionality or safe in functionality, your central nervous system still picks it as safe. Let me just give you a case study. I'm trying to not share stories about my clients because that's breaking confidentiality. So there's this case study from a conference that I attended most recently. So the couple, they've been married, I think, for like 10 plus years. And the guy travels a lot, and the girl or the wife is a stay-at-home mom. By the way, this is an American couple, so you won't know them, just FYI. And what happens is, from both of their family of origin, the husband, let's call him Andrew. So Andrew, who is the husband, learned that a man should never be home because his father was never home. That's why he chose the career he chose, to be traveling. He was, I think in America, they call them medical sales reps. So he was a medical sales rep or a medical person. So he would travel a lot. Now, his wife, we'll call her Anne, and they have 4 children. She's happy about provision of finances that Andrew is bringing. But how did she grow up? She grew up with a mother who worked a lot, and she's not working. So this couple is in constant conflict on the husband feeling like he's never doing enough, and the wife feeling like the husband is never available, which he is not. But you see, based on what he was told, men work. So he goes, he works, and he brings the money. Her, she was told also, women work. She's not working. She's at home. She's frustrated. She wants a companionship. The companionship is not there. I cannot emphasize how much adverse childhood experiences or childhood exposure shapes our partners. So if you're in a relationship, sit back, take stock. What are some of the unhealthy patterns that I find myself in? Most of the time, and we did talk about attachment style in season 2, in episode 2, we find that somebody who's avoidant will always pair up with somebody who's anxious. And the two have an unhealthy symbiotic relationship because the person who's anxious needs this person to be avoidant because that is what that sparks the anxiety. So partner A is anxious and she's paired with partner B who's avoidant. So she's constantly anxious about his presence. Partner B is constantly avoiding partner A because of her anxiety. Now, this is a pattern that has been learned in early childhood experiences. I hope you may understand. But the whole idea is this. If we don't heal from our adverse childhood experiences, we most probably will end up in relationships that mirror our parents. And most of the time, we grow up saying, I don't want to have a relationship like my parents. And I'm not here to shame parents. They had their own experiences. But most of the time I will hear, I didn't want to end up like my dad, or I didn't want to end up like my mother. But this is it. This is why we end up there. Remember how I said what is modeled becomes predictable, and what is predictable becomes safe. Sorry, modeled, predictable, familiar, safe. If you don't change this pattern, I can guarantee you that you'll most probably mirror the same relationship that you don't want to be in. Because most of the time, and I tell this to my clients a lot, most of us know what we don't know. But very few of us take the time to actually curate what we want. Now, why is that so important? Let's say I'm in a relationship and I don't want somebody who shouts at me. I'm single and I want to get into a relationship. So I say, what don't I want? I don't want somebody who shouts at me because dad used to shout at me. I don't want somebody who comes home late because dad used to come home early. I don't want somebody who drinks because dad never used to drink. And I want somebody to provide. You see, these things that you don't want, they become the bare minimum. Meaning, you'll find somebody who's not shouting at you. You'll find somebody who comes home early. You'll find somebody who provides, and you'll find somebody who is there for you. That becomes the bare minimum. But there are all these other things that you're not looking at. Values, philosophy of life, ambition, worldview, how they take themselves, how they view themselves. And so that the thing that keeps us in dysfunctional relationships is because of our early childhood exposure, the bare minimums of, but he doesn't shout at me, but he also provides. You settle for that. It's a good thing for you, maybe. For others, it's not a good thing. I don't know. Everybody has their own experience. What I'm trying to say is we need to take time to first heal from our adverse childhood experiences and then curate a healthy way of relating with ourselves and subsequently a healthy way of relating with with the other person. Because remember, the quality of your partner equals to the quality of your overall health. There's also something else I've seen in relationships, and I speak about this a lot. Based on how we grew up, based on the exposure that we were exposed to as children, we learned self-value. Either it was there or it was not there. So if you're emotionally neglected, unfortunately, you learned that your emotional needs were not important. So the first person who meets any aspect of your emotional needs becomes a savior, and you will cling on to them whether they are healthy for you or not. So I normally like to say this. Please understand your value before you get into a relationship, because if you don't, somebody else will ascribe a value to you and you will live all your life under that value, believing that that's your value. Again, shaped by early childhood experiences. I'm hoping you can start to see how early childhood experiences, we were exposed to them. It was not our responsibility, but it is our responsibility to now learn how to relate better as we shed off our early childhood experiences, because that's the same thing that we're going to pass on to our children. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you in episode 5.